Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Okay, my name is Al Reider. I am with CARE North Carolina. We are the nation's largest and oldest Muslim civil rights group. Tonight, we are discussing not another Muslim ban, Muslim affairs under the new administration. So basically, we'll be talking on subjects such as ICE, the FBI, executive orders, and basically everything that Trump's doing that can affect Muslims, essentially. So, thank you for taking your time to join us tonight. As we gather, we face a critical moment in American history, one that brings with it many questions and concerns for our Muslim community. With the new administration in place, many of us are grappling with uncertainty about our rights, safety, and the future of Muslim affairs in the United States, from immigration policies to civil rights, executive orders, and even the safety of our masajid. There are many issues on the table. Today, I'll provide an overview, inshallah, of these pressing matters, how they may impact us, and the steps that we can take individually and as a community to protect ourselves and our communities. Disclaimer, this is not legal advice as a lawyer. I am the head of the CARE NC office, but I am not coming today as a lawyer, so do not take this as legal advice per se. Do consult a lawyer if you have specific legal counsel advice. Okay, let's begin by understanding the role of executive orders in shaping U.S. policy. An executive order is a directive, an order, issued by the president to manage federal operations. So in other words, anything within the departments that the president oversees, the Department of the Interior, which includes your national parks, Department of Education, which includes your student loans, anything under those departments, the president has the authority to say, do this now, okay? That doesn't mean, though, that the courts in Congress can then say, I want to challenge that because it's unconstitutional what that specific order may say. But at the same time, they have the authority, the president has the authority to say and tell anyone within those departments to do whatever he says, okay? It holds the force of law, executive orders, without needing the approval of Congress, and it can affect a wide range of policies, including immigration. While executive orders can be challenged by Congress, as I mentioned, the courts, or even future presidents, they remain a powerful tool in shaping the direction of the nation. Under the new administration, we have already seen executive orders aimed at limiting rights and freedoms. One of the most notable is the policy that rescinded the sensitive locations policy. The sensitive locations policy previously protected certain places like masajid, schools, and hospitals by preventing or stopping immigration and customs enforcement, ICE agents, from conducting raids in or near them. This change puts Muslim communities at risk, especially at our masajid, where our most vulnerable members could be targeted. ICE, of course, refers to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is itself a branch of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, which is right under the president. ICE enforces immigration laws within the United States and engages in arrests, raids, detentions, deportations, and removal proceedings. ICE's actions are often intended to, and frequently do, create fear and concern within targeted immigrant communities. So, what does that mean for us, basically? Well, ICE agents now have the power to arrest people in places that were once considered quote-unquote safe havens, okay? So prior to about a month ago, if you were undocumented and you were inside a masjid, inside a church, inside a synagogue, a Hindu temple, what have you, or a school or a hospital, the ICE agent is not legally allowed, was not legally allowed as of a month ago to loiter in the parking lot, to come out the door. They weren't allowed to come in the building, even if they had a warrant. They couldn't come in that building. Basically, it's that safe haven zone, you know? That has now since changed. We now have since seen, not in North Carolina, mind you, but in some states, United States, masajid that have been raided by ICE. We have, in fact, seen that, okay? While they still need a judicial warrant in the modern day for an ICE agent to enter a masjid, they no longer need one to loiter outside or enter public spaces. They cannot enter the private spaces still. Okay, a lot of terms here, public spaces, private spaces, loitering outside the masjid. Okay, what does those things mean legally? Okay, So let's give a hypothetical. Let's say you're undocumented, okay? You're inside IAR, you're praying Maghrib prayer, okay? You're here in the Musalla. ICE agent comes to the door, 5'10" ICE agents. They're coming to the door and they say, hey, we want to come and arrest XYZ people, and we know that they're likely at this masjid right now, okay? They're undocumented, we want to come and deport them. Previously, they weren't legally allowed to do that, but now they can. But there's exceptions here. So when they're at the door, what first has to happen is somebody from the masjid, a person of authority, be that an imam, board member, security guard, what have you, goes to the front door and asks the ICE agents, do you have a warrant? They can then say yes or no. If they say yes, if they say no, they have to leave. They can stay in the parking lot because the parking lot is public property. So as of right now, they can sit out in the parking lot without a warrant and sit there for days on end and wait there for you to come out, and they can arrest you then. They'll just wait there. They can do that. That wasn't always the case, but as of this past month, that is not the case. Let's say they do have a warrant. What kind of warrant, okay? Well, there is a judicial warrant and what we like to call a fake warrant, okay? So a judicial warrant is a warrant that is specifically signed by a judge, okay? So if that warrant is signed by a judge, it says Judge so-and-so, it has their signature, it has the specific court, like US District Court, whatever, that it came from, that is a valid warrant and they can be allowed in. ICE has been known to use what's called fake warrants, where it's an official looking paper, but there's no specific judge, there's no signature, there's no specific court even. Under those documents, you are not required to let them in the building. Let's say they do have the warrant though, okay? Where inside the masjid are they allowed to go? So the lobby is a prime example in IAR. The lobby right here, we have the little rotunda area with the desk in the middle and all the classrooms on the side there. If they walk into that lobby with a warrant, anyone in that lobby is subject to search and arrest by an ICE agent, anyone. Okay? They can search for documentation, they can search for your green card, they can search for your driver's license, whatever, you know? If you don't have that stuff, you're in a bad position, I'll tell you right now. Okay? If you don't have any of that documentation on you, you're in a bad position. But let's say that you're praying Maghrib here in the masjid, okay? You're in the musalla. Those doors right now are closed. There's one that's open back there, but those doors are for the most part closed. Are they allowed to come to the musalla? No, because the doors are closed. If the doors are open, they can come in as much as they want willy-nilly, if the doors are open, okay? I know that sounds very, random and it doesn't make any sense. Why would there be a difference if the doors are closed or open? But the difference is the ICE department defines a private and a public space within the religious building, be that, or the buildings that are now being allowed to go into, hospitals, schools, masajid, what have you, as, is that room a room I can easily access from the front door? Or is that room a room I have to seek permission to enter? That's the distinction. If the door is closed, the idea is you have to seek permission to enter, okay? But let's say they start seeing people walking in the door, okay? People walk in the door without permission. Then they would go, aha, that room does not need permission for me to enter, so I'm gonna go walk in that room. They can do that, they can. So then the next question then becomes, well, what room is safe? If they can come to the masjid room as long as they see people walk in the room, even if the doors are closed, what room is safe? If you are undocumented and we have ICE agents at the front door, your first move is the imam's office. Your first move are the classrooms, the security guards room over there near the shoe racks. Those rooms in the building have one door, or maybe the imam's office in case two doors, one outside, one inside. But in general, they have one door, and that door can be locked, okay? And it's clear that those doors are for private spaces, okay? In other words, on a normal day, would you be entering the imam's office willy-nilly? Would you just walk into the imam's office just randomly? No, okay? So in that scenario, the imam's office would be off limits to the ICE agent, which means if you went in there, you would be safe, okay? Now, they may wait there for you for hours on end, and who knows how long they might be waiting, but technically you could wait there as long as you want and you'd be safe, and they can't go in. Okay? So, it's a lot of information. Before we continue, do I have any questions about this specific section of the presentation? Any questions? Any hands raised? Any questions for this? Clarifications? Yes. Anyone. They can talk to anyone they want to. If you do not have your driver's license on you, yes, you could be in trouble. If you do not carry your driver's license on you at all times, now is the time to start doing that. Now is the time to start doing that. If you do not have your driver's license on you, you need to have it on you. You need to have a wallet with a driver's license, something to carry that in. If you don't have a driver's license, but you are a citizen. Let's say hypothetically a citizen did not have a driver's license but is a citizen. There are other forms of documentation that that person can get to prove they're a citizen. That could be something like a state identification card or a voter card or a passport, something of that nature, In that case, you would carry that documentation around. But the point is to have something official from the government. You could be subject to arrest. You could be subject to arrest. Because they have no way of proving who you are. Until they get down to the station, take fingerprints, what have you, until you get to that point and you call a lawyer and everything, and then they come with your documentation with you. By that point, you've already been put in handcuffs, you're taken out somewhere. It's like, the point being, you don't want to go through all that trouble to begin with. Be safe, have your documentation on you. Especially if you're a green card holder, you always have to have your green card on you, always. Always, 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 okay? So, for kids are a little bit different. So kids obviously don't have, a driver's license, obviously, unless they're 16 or permit or what have you. So if you're of that age, I would recommend having your permit or your driver's license on you all the time, of course. But outside of that, to my knowledge, when I've heard from Care National and whatnot, in that scenario, they cannot go up to a child without guardianship there present. And if they're at a school, that's different, because they're in the school setting, the teacher's there. There's like legal limbo land there with that. They've been known to raid schools recently. They have gone to elementary schools and raided elementary schools. Schools, mind you, in states like New Mexico and Arizona, where in some districts the population may be undocumented of up to 50+%. Those are the schools they're targeting. They're not targeting like, Hunter Elementary or Ligon Middle School. They're not targeting those type of schools. They're targeting mainly schools where they know for fact are in districts where the undocumented population is extremely high. But that being said, they can still do it. Hypothetically, they can still do it. So in that scenario, it's up to the teacher then to protect the child. And then you'd have to obviously, go through a lot of legal avenues to kind of protect the situation after it's already happened, because then you have to go to the courts, and you have to say, well, this is unconstitutional, and you have to go. It's a lot, but the basic gist is that we don't know fully yet what all that will look like, because we don't have enough examples to show us yet that have been lawsuited out of, All this is new territory. Like the whole, them coming to the masjid, them coming to the hospital, the school, it's all new territory, So it's up to the courts to decide further on how this is going to proceed once people sue after it's already happened, if that makes sense. But again, I want to reiterate the fact that I would not go into panic mode and say my kid's going to be picked out of school. That's not what I'm saying. But just be aware, though, that that is something that in some schools in the country that could hypothetically happen, and has happened at. Did you clarify your question? They're safe here, yes. Yes, if you're with your child here at the masjid, I'd be more concerned about you as the parent, have your documentation, you as the parent. Is that a hand raise? Okay, yes? Can they leave the parking lot? Yeah, they can leave the parking lot if they want to. On the street, that's public information. The street is public space, especially so. They don't need anything for the street. previously they couldn't even come loiter in the parking lot of the masjid, but now they can do that without anything. But they want to come and go out of the parking lot, they can. Now, if that gate, IR is different though, because IR has that gate that rolls down, up and down. So if that's closed, they don't have legal authority come in, because then it's like, okay, this parking lot's blocked off as private property, so they don't have the legal right to then come in once the gate's closed. If the gate's open though, they can come in as much as they want. To the parking lot, That's a very good point we brought up. So private, now that is the one tactic we've seen some churches take, where they will label certain rooms as private property. So for instance, in the masjid of some of these other states and whatnot, they'll label the musalla, there'll be a big sign, that's even a small sign, but a sign that will say private property or private room. You tell the masjid, you tell the congregants, hey look, we're putting this here for this reason, but ICE doesn't need to know that. You can come and go as you please as a person who's coming for salah, but ICE doesn't need to know that. As far as ICE is concerned, they see a sign that says private room and they can't go in it, you know? They don't need to know what it's for or what it is. Doesn't matter. The point is, it's a person who has never been inside this building before in their entire lives, who isn't Muslim most likely, and who's gonna look at a room that says private property or private room, and that's gonna tell them to not go in the room, you know? Now, that is a tactic. We have not seen in practice if that's worked or not yet. We have not seen. We have not seen if that's how it worked out yet, because we have not seen instances yet of people doing that in their buildings and having an ICE raid happen. But that's a theory that could work, yes.
In terms of documentation, do you need the real ID or a photo on your phone?
So when you say real ID, do you referring to the term real ID, like the one you have in the airport?
Or the green card, what have you?
If you're a green card holder, you need the green card itself specifically? The card itself, yes. The photo one, yes. Now, if you are a U.S. citizen fully, then your driver's license is all you need, okay? If you're fully a citizen, all you need is your driver's license. Now, if you're on a tourist visa, you need to have that visa on you, okay? If you're on a specific visa and you're not on a green card status, you need to have that visa on you. And not a screenshot of it, the actual paper, okay? The actual paper itself. Okay. Any other questions we have before we continue? Okay, we're going to continue, inshallah. Okay, so birthright citizenship. Another serious concern that has emerged is the threat to birthright citizenship. Under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, anyone born in the United States is automatically a citizen. That means if mom and dad is from Amman and Jordan, and they're visiting New York City, going to Times Square on vacation, and mom is 8-9 months pregnant, and she gives birth in one of the hospitals in Manhattan to a child, that child automatically is a U.S. citizen, no matter where those parents came from. That child is born here on U.S. soil, that child is an American citizen. However, even though that this right has been a long cornerstone of American law, ensuring equality and protection for all children born here, the new administration had taken steps to undermine this right, okay? An executive order attempted to limit birthright citizenship was passed by Trump within the first week of his tenure in his second term, okay? So what that means is that he was basically saying anyone who's born in the United States to parents who aren't U.S. citizens, that child is no longer a U.S. citizen. Well, the next question goes, well, that's not legal because the U.S. Constitution overrules any executive order, right? From Basic Civics 101, if the Constitution says something, no matter if you write any executive order, the Constitution is the law of the land. That's the primary document there. So then the next question then goes, well, how do we make sure that Trump's executive order doesn't become law, okay, doesn't become the law of the land, despite the Constitution? Well, that then goes to the state attorney generals, okay? Well, does everyone here know, anyone here not know what an attorney general is, what they do? An attorney general, yeah, okay. So an attorney general is someone who's in charge of a big part of the chunk of the Justice Department of either the federal or state level, okay? And their job is to do lawsuits against corporations and against other governments on behalf of U.S. citizens in cases in which corporations and U.S. government breaks U.S. law, okay? Because you cannot arrest a corporation, you can't arrest a government Well, you can sue a government, you can sue a corporation, okay? For instance, let's say that a chemical company, had a factory next to the Neuse River, and they suddenly spilled a bunch of chemicals into the river, and now our drinking water in Falls Lake is polluted, okay? The Attorney General of North Carolina would then be responsible for suing the company, okay, to hold them accountable. So 22 state attorney generals, including Jeff Jackson, who was our North Carolina Attorney General, sued the Trump administration immediately after this executive order came out, immediately, okay? And what that basically did was that that order went on pause, so it never came into effect. And as of last week, those same attorney generals, including Jeff Jackson of North Carolina, won that lawsuit. So the birthright citizenship executive order issue is gone. It's not an issue anymore. However, that does not mean that future attacks on birthright citizenship couldn't happen. Okay? We know the likelihood of that occurring again is high. We just don't know how it's going to be worded legally next time. We don't know how it's going to be worded legally. Okay? Any questions on birthright citizenship before we continue? Okay, immigration. The broader immigration landscape under the new administration has an issue which has been one of the most contentious, and the new administration has signaled its intent to make life more difficult for immigrants, including Muslims. While the original Muslim ban has not been reinstated, policies are still in place that make it harder for Muslims to enter or remain in the United States, along with other minority groups. Executive orders are being issued to tighten vetting processes and increase immigration scrutiny. These measures might delay or prevent Muslim individuals and families from gaining visas or residency. Okay, so what do you know about this? So basic gist, let's say you have a flight booked to go back to, let's go to a random country here, back to Morocco, okay? You're gonna see your family back in Casablanca, okay? You're gonna go back there to see them, but knock knock, you're at JFK Airport on your way back home, okay? You have a connecting flight in JFK, from Casablanca to JFK, and then from JFK back to Raleigh. You're in JFK Airport. You get to customs control and border control, okay? What happens to you? Ahmed bin whatever, you know? Look at your name, look where you came from, Morocco, that line, there you go. The likelihood of you getting pulled aside at immigration and having increased questioning, increased search and seizure of your property, including your luggage basically, and potential for having a delayed layover to the point where you are going to miss your domestic flight connection is going to increase and has increased, okay? So what does that mean? That means that when you land as a US citizen, green card holder, what have you, into the United States, into the international airport, before you get back to RDU, I would recommend at least having 3 to 4 hours of a layover scheduled. At least 3 to 4. At least 3 to 4. Because the likelihood of people with Muslim names, we know with the whole, unspoken lists, the quadruple S on your ticket and everything, I know many of us in here are quite familiar with, you will be pulled aside most likely if you're quote unquote suspicious, and that broad of definition of suspicious is pretty broad. So I would build more time into your schedule so that you're not gonna miss your connecting flight back to RDU, okay? This is not to say you're not gonna be allowed into the country, because if you're a US citizen, they can't really do that unless they have genuine good reason to do that, But this does mean that they're gonna make it a lot more inconvenient for you to get back into the country, okay? So a good example of this, this was even before Trump was in office, but I came back from Turkey and Pakistan and Umrah recently, and the second I got back into Dulles Airport in DC, I had an hour-long session with an immigration officer where they went through all of my luggage, piece by piece, took everything out, and then put everything back in, and then gave us back our passports, and then let us go. And that was only an hour. We're talking 3 or 4 potentially here, increasing this too, okay? Any questions on that? FBI, ICE, knowing your rights. Another area of concern is the possibility of federal agencies like the FBI and ICE conducting investigations or raids, as we've discussed before. If you or someone you know is approached by these agencies, FBI or ICE, it's vital to know your rights. For example, if the FBI knocks on your door, do not open it without a valid judicial warrant. We'll get into that in a second. Always ask to see the warrant. FBI, ICE at your door. What's the first thing you do? Who is it? Okay, can I see your badge? Can I see your warrant? I don't want to open the door. Slide the warrant under the door. Slide it under the door. Don't even open the door. Hear them through the door, slide it under the door, okay? That door remains closed. You look at that warrant. If that warrant looks appropriate and legitimate, as in there is a judge that signed it, there is a specific court that's named on it, then you're good. You let them open in. You answer the questions you do need to do, okay? If that warrant is not a legitimate warrant, and I'll teach you again how to work through that, you don't need to do anything. You tell them, have a good day, be on your way. That's all you need to say, okay? Now, you also have the right to remain silent and to speak to an attorney before answering any questions. So let's say they do have a judicial warrant. What happens then? You open the door, and they say, okay, well, I'm going to speak to you a little bit. The first thing you should do is say, that's great and all. I don't want to speak to you without my lawyer. Does it matter that you have a lawyer on speed dial yet? No, doesn't matter. What matters is you're going to get a lawyer. They cannot speak to you if you don't want to speak to them, even if they have a judicial warrant, without your lawyer present. If you want it to be that way, if you want your lawyer there to protect you when you're talking to them, they cannot talk to you without your permission if you want a lawyer there present too, okay? And nor should you. You should never talk to an FBI or ICE agent without a lawyer present. You are not required to answer questions about your immigration status. So if they ask you, hey, are you under this visa, are you under that visa, what's your immigration status? You don't have to tell them anything. You don't have to tell them anything. They don't need to know. They want to know, but they don't need to know. You don't have to tell them. You're not legally allowed, you're not legally obliged to. If you're a foreign national, you have the right to request a phone call to contact your consulate or embassy. So if you're here as a foreign national, you're not a full citizen yet, okay? Let's say you're from Bangladesh, okay? So from Bangladesh. You then have the right to make a single phone call to the embassy in Washington, D.C. for Bangladesh, and you can say, hey, I need to speak to somebody from there. I want to have them present when I speak with these ICE officials, okay? You have that right. It's important to understand who is most at risk of being targeted by ICE: non-citizens without legal immigration status, those who have violated their immigration status, individuals with prior deportation orders, certain criminal convictions, or those perceived as a national security risk are often the ones who are prioritized. Because ICE enforcement can be unpredictable, however, knowing how to respond in these situations is crucial. Okay. This is an example, although a little blurry, of a judicial warrant on the right and a fake warrant on the left, okay? So the fake warrant, but it says in evidence, blah, 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 and it says to any officer, it says the act, and a certificate of service. It looks very official, right? It says the city and the date, and it's signed. It's not official. It doesn't have Judge so-and-so. It doesn't say Judge so-and-so. It doesn't have a court name. On the one on the right, however, judicial warrant, it says United States District Court. It specifies what court we're talking about here, okay? It says it's a search and seizure warrant. What is the warrant for? Search and seizure. It has the name of the judge and the date on the bottom, signed, specific. If your warrant that you're shown to does not have those things, that is not a real warrant. You are not obliged to let them in. You don't have to let them in at all. Now, if your warrant does have those things on it, you do have to let them in. You don't have to answer their questions, but you have to let them in. Okay. So, if they arrive at the masjid, ICE, remain calm. Remember that they cannot enter the private spaces, as we talked about, without a judicial warrant consent. Do not allow them entry unless they have the judicial warrant, of course. you can say to them, if they don't have the judicial warrant, that I do not give you permission to enter my masjid or to be here, please leave. That's all you need to do. And if they don't leave, that's when you take out your phone and you start recording, okay? If they even come in legally with a judicial warrant, you need to have your phone out and record, because the only thing that keeps them accountable is if they're being video recorded. That's the only thing, because it's your word against theirs. You are legally allowed in the state of North Carolina to video record somebody that you are having an active conversation with, okay? So have that active conversation, follow them around the masjid as they're doing their business, and make sure that they're not doing anything that they're not supposed to. Okay, it's also important to be aware that they may use deception and intimidation to gain entry. You need to document and record the interaction, which can help ensure compliance with the warrant and protect the rights of those involved. The new administration's policies make it more important than ever to stay informed to protect our spaces. Of course, holding workshops like these helps with that. But also telling people in your family and community, what have you, who aren't here tonight, about these resources, about this information is also very helpful. Okay. Any questions on that before we continue? Yes? So it says the address on it in the, in the mail search of so-and-so and so-and-so, and the address. Normally, yes, it would have your name on it. Normally it would. But it can have an address on it and still be valid. I mean, if it's for the building of IAR, they can put 808 Atwater Street, and that would be valid. If they have reason for it. And their reason can be very vague at this point. Let's be frank, with the administration, with how the courts are right now, it can be very, very vague. Yes? No. In other states, yes. In North Carolina, they cannot ask you not to record. They can ask you, and they can tell you you can't record me, but then legally you are allowed to. In North Carolina. Now, other states are different. They have different rules. But as long as you're within the great old North state here, they cannot make you not record them. So you have that right to record them while they're doing that. Any other questions? Okay. So, refugee policies. Another troubling policy is the restriction on refugee admissions. So, has anyone been aware that refugee processing has come to an almost complete halt in the past month? So, the new administration has significantly reduced the number of refugees allowed into the United States, with a sharp decline in those coming from Muslim-majority countries. Refugees fleeing political persecution have long relied on this program for safety. As Muslims, we understand the value of helping those in need, especially those fleeing violence or oppression. The administration's decision to halt refugee processing goes against the very principles that we hope that America withstands, claiming that it is a beacon of hope for those seeking refuge. Okay. The biggest example of this, literally almost on day one, if not day one, it was definitely week one of Trump's presidency, this time around, okay? Did you ever recall all of those Afghan translators that helped the U.S. military during the Afghan war? So all the folks who were out there with help of the U.S. military, translating Pashto, translating this, translating that, okay. All of those people who were translators were promised refugee status in the United States if they so wanted, for them and their families. If you want to come to the United States and be a U.S. citizen as a refugee, with you and your families, you are legally allowed to if you were a translator with the U.S. military during the Afghan war, okay? There were at least 10, maybe 50 plus people who met those qualifications, who had their airplane ticket in hand, their documents in hand. They were literally about to go fly on a flight from Kabul back to the United States that week, and were told they can't come. They were told they can't come. We literally have gotten to a point now where people who have every single ounce of promise given to them and every single ounce of proper documentation provided still couldn't come. Still couldn't come. Why? Because they said so. Because they said so. Any questions on that? And yes, that is being fought in the courts, by the way, too. That action as well. But this is something that's a reality that we're living through. Okay. So, Protecting our community. So, in times of uncertainty, it's more important than ever to stay informed, support one another, and advocate for justice. Before we continue on this one, I will say, as we're wrapping up with this, there are two other points. One is Trump's plan to annex Gaza into the United States as a U.S. territory, okay? Everyone's obviously heard of this. You know, this is really ridiculous, just utter nonsense that he stated recently, okay? The status of that in prior years, we wouldn't take that seriously, you know? In his first administration, he would say outlandish things and they would never come, or they wouldn't always come true, because we knew that there were people in his administration who were holding him back from doing the most craziest of the things he said, okay? This time around, his handlers are not there anymore. He's completely filled by yes men, completely surrounded by yes men, okay? So when literally yesterday, the rulers of Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and several other countries in the Gulf and in the Arab world got together and had a meeting specifically on this specific issue, they did so under the understanding that this is a very serious and realistic possibility. U.S. troops, boots on the ground in Gaza is a realistic possibility. It's not a for sure thing, but it's extremely likely and extremely possible at this point, given the fact that everything he has said he will do, 99% of that this time around he has done. So we cannot decide to not take him at his word anymore, because we have to believe him when he says he wants to do something, okay? So I will say it is uncertain if the pushback from the other Middle Eastern leaders is going to stop this from ever happening before it happens, but it is something that I would not be surprised by if we got a sudden announcement tomorrow even that Trump made the order to send in troops from, you know, Camp Lejeune or Fort Bragg, what have you, out to Gaza tomorrow. That's a possibility, okay? So, not scared, but that's a real thing. Second thing, the Muslim ban. So we don't know with certainty how he's going to, and he by Trump, we don't, in administration, we don't know with certainty how they're going to word the legal wording of it this time around, but we do know, based on their own words and their own statements, their own writings, that they fully intend to do another version of the Muslim ban. We do know that. Now, what that's going to look like this time around, we don't know with certainty again, but from the inside information that CARE has and from other people as well, and the public information they've posted in Project 2025 and elsewhere, we do know that likely, again, likely, not for certain, but likely, that the new Muslim ban will look like anyone from a Muslim country that, or any country for that matter, this is the legal way that we suspect them to do in this way, that has a 3 or 3 to 5 rating on the 1 to 5 scale of danger for U.S. citizens to visit by the State Department, those countries are not going to allow citizens to come to the United States. Okay, let's back up here. What does that mean? Is everyone familiar with the 1 to 5 scale that the U.S. State Department has for the safety of a U.S. citizen traveling to that country as a tourist? So, for instance, Canada is listed as 1. It's very safe, okay? They're our allies next door. You can cross the border and not be in any danger. Certain provinces in countries like Turkey are 3 because it's right against the border of Syria. There's concerns they've had over the many years of the Syrian civil war spilling over there. You know, that's why that was a 3. Venezuela is like a 4 or 5 because of the political instability in the country, okay? North Korea is a 5, you know? So those countries, albeit North Korea and Venezuela are not Muslim majority, they're going to be lumped into this because this is the way they're going to do this, basically. It's what we predict. Inshallah, it doesn't happen. But we predict that anyone from a country that's currently stated as a 3 to 4 or 5 on that scale, that the State Department already has publicly online, anyone a citizen from that country would not be able to enter the United States. We think that that's what they're going to plan on trying to do. And they're going to spin it most likely as it's a safety hazard for U.S. citizens to allow these people to enter the country. Okay? We don't know when this is going to happen. We don't know if for sure it's going to happen. We just know it's very likely. You know, it's very likely. Any questions on the Gaza potential Gaza invasion or the potential new Muslim ban. They're very bleak things, but it's something we do have to understand and you know, work through here. Well, outside of that, key actions that we need to do as a community is educate ourselves and others about our rights, including what to do if ICE or FBI comes to your door. Report any ICE or FBI activity to CARE so we can keep our data on this, especially if it happens near or at the masjid. Advocate for fair and just immigration policies. If you are having an unfair, so a non-fair immigration case, the best thing for you to do is to contact your local member of Congress. And I know that's something that's very overdone these days, but it is genuinely something that if you feel you're not being treated fairly in your immigration process, either for you or your spouse or what have you, then you need to contact a member of Congress too. And that's extra pressure. As we face these challenging times, it's clear the Muslim community must remain united, vigilant, and proactive. The policies under this new administration, while alarming, and very alarming they are not insurmountable. We can, in fact, overcome them. Through knowledge, unity, and advocacy, we can protect our rights and the rights of future generations. And again, thank you so much for your attention today. Remember, we are stronger when we stand together. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for your attention and your time. And I will take any further questions about anything talked tonight about, if anyone has any. Yes? So you're saying, are there Muslim agents working on behalf of ICE? Are you saying, are there? To my knowledge, I mean, there could be Muslims employed in ICE. I mean, there's nothing saying that a Muslim can't work for ICE, at least in terms of ICE's documents and everything. Islamically, I don't know, you know, obviously, but like, you know, I was asking my mom about that one. But are there people who are Muslim working for ICE? Statistically speaking, probably not, but there might be one or two, maybe. But I doubt it. I doubt it, considering what it is, you know. That's true. That's true. They do. They do. They would. Yep. Yes, I'm so sorry. So the question was that the brother was asking if there are any Muslim ICE agents. And I said, I don't know personally any, but statistically speaking, it's possible. But I don't think many. I don't think many at all. Any other questions? Yes. Kash Patel, yes. There are quite a lot of implications with Kash Patel. So we don't know all of his plans, but so for context, the brother is asking is that what implications do we have in regards to the Muslim community with the new hire of the new FBI director, Kash Patel? Let me tell you about Kash Patel. Kash Patel is a long-standing hardcore Trump ally, and he even wrote a children's book. It's called something like the coup of trying to overthrow the king, and it's literally like this picture book of Donald Trump as a king and all of the Democrats like trying to overthrow him. You know, this is where this dude's mind is. Okay, and he's now our FBI director. Okay, so he's a little bit unhinged, to say the least, and he has made it very clear that he intends to go after what he declares as the enemies of Trump. So he plans on using the FBI to go after the enemies of Trump. So that means people who were fighting COVID back in 2020, 2021, you know, people who were, you know, putting vaccines in schools, vaccines here, vaccines there. He's gonna go after them. He plans on doing it. He plans on going after people who, you know, were the folks who tried to do the impeachment hearings over Trump in his first term, folks who were attorneys during the prosecutors during the January 6th court cases. Anyone that he defines as being an enemy to Trump, he intends to go after. That's the implications. And that could include Muslims. That could include Muslims. But I will be frank, I would suspect that that would be like way down the chain of his priorities. His priorities are like the very public, specific figures like Anthony Fauci or, you know, Mike Pence. These people who like publicly have stated that they're not fans of Trump and have worked against him. You know, either previously or currently or what have you. So Kash Patel very much is expected to go after those people. Any questions further? Okay. I will wrap up with that. Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I know it is a doom and gloom topic, but it is important for us to know, and inshallah you can share this information with others around you, and it will be helpful in case, inshallah, nothing ever does happen, but you'll have the resources now to fight that if it does, inshallah. Thank you so much.